Hi, y'all. You know what time it is. Alright, it wasn't the first time, but I tried. Hi, y'all. Welcome back to Storytime with Chris. Like I always say, you don't have to watch these videos when they go live. You're more than welcome to watch them in your nap time, downtime, max and relax and chillaxing time. I am back. I had a bit of an accident on Sunday, and I want to talk about it because I would rather you all hear it from me than from anybody else. There are a few people who do know what happened, but I just wanted to clear the air so there could be no confusion for the future ventures of this conversation. So I was at work Sunday, and I was bartending, and I was in the midst of dropping off some dishes to the dish tank, and I'm chit-chatting with my coworkers. And one of the racks where we store glasses, they accidentally slipped off the shelf and hit me in the back of the head. And I immediately blacked out. And thankfully my friend Andrew caught me before I could fall. And I woke up, and God bless my management team. God bless everybody at Ellie's and Mills Park Hotel staff-wise. Because everybody responded very quickly. So once I was able to stand up, they got me some water, we made an instant report, I was taken care of. And then later that day, I went to urgent care. Thankfully, it was not a concussion. I just experienced blunt force trauma to the back of my head, and I have since had my meds to take care of it. Shout out to anybody that's looked out for me these past few days. I really appreciate you. But I wanted to state that on here because, excuse me, this is my platform. This is my voice, this is my truth, and if I want to express things that are pertinent to my life and the things that I do, I'm allowed to do that. And I would rather, like I said, I would rather you all hear it from me than to hear it from anybody else. So, that's why I said that. I am still having some residual headaches, but I feel as though in the next few days they should be gone. Excuse me. Somebody must be talking about me. That's usually what that means, was you sneeze multiple times. It means somebody's talking about you. So I say all that to say, kids, is that don't be afraid to voice your truth and be honest in the best way that you know how, and to share it with people in the most appropriate way you feel is appropriate to your situation. So I'm doing much better. Like I said, I'm still having some residual headaches. I've never been hit like that before at my job. It was very much out of the blue. I've never had something like that happen at my job, but I'm very grateful and thankful to everybody that responded very quickly and made sure that I was taken care of. So shout out to everybody I work with, specifically more so my friend Andrew, Kyler, Gage, Peter, Becky, making sure I'm not missing anybody immediately. Miranda, Sarita, Jessie, my auntie Pam, of course my mother. I immediately told her. Shout out to my dad. Shout out to my grandmother, who's been consistently calling me to make sure I'm okay. Shout out to my best friends. Shout out to my number one best friend in love for checking up on me. Yeah, I'm doing great, y'all. I'm still glad to be here. So today we are back with a series of unfortunate events. We are on chapter 11. So we have 2 more chapters to go. We're done with this book and we can move on to the 5th book, which is one of my favorites, The Austere Academy. And then right after that is The Ursax Elevator, my other favorite book in this series. And then my official number 1 favorite book in the series of unfortunate events is book 7, which is The Vile Village. So we are going to be breezing through these, and we are going to get highly animated with our voices and narration. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. Chapter 11. As we have discussed previously, a book's first sentence can often tell you what sort of story the book contains. This book, you will remember, began with the sentence, "The Baudelaire orphans looked out the grimy window of the train and gazed at the gloomy blackness of the finite forest, wondering if their lives would ever get any better." And the story has certainly been as wretched and hopeless as the first sentence promised it would be. I only bring this up now so you can, understand the feeling of dread that Violet and Sunny Baudelaire experienced as they opened a book in the library of the Lucky Smells lumber mill. The 2 Baudelaire sisters already had a feeling of dread, of course, part of the dread came from how cruelly, unfairly Sir had behaved. Another part of the dread came from how Charles, kind as he was, seemed unable to help them. Yet another part of the dread came from the fact that Klaus had been hypnotized once more, and of course the lion's share of the dread. The phrase lion's share here means the biggest part, and has nothing to do with lions or sharing, came from the fact that Count Olaf, or as he insisted on calling himself, Shirley, was back in the Baudelaire's lives and causing so much misery. But there was an extra helping of dread that Violet and Sunny felt when they began Advanced Ocular Science by Dr. Georgina Orwell. The first sentence was, "This tome will endeavor to scrutinize in quasi-inclusive breadth the epistemology." I'm gonna say this too fast. I'm from Cleveland. We talk very fast, so bear with me. Epistemology of ophthalmologically contrived appraisals of ocular systems and the subsequent and requisite exertions imperative for explanation of injurious states. I am so sorry, y'all. I can read. I want to make that very clear. But some of these words some of these words are a bit long, and they're a bit long and a bit highly syllabic, so pardon me. Anthropologically contrived appraisals of ocular systems and the subsequent and requisite exertions imperative for explanation of injurious states. Excuse me. Say that 5 times fast. And as Violet read it out loud to her sister, both children felt the dread that comes when you begin a very boring and difficult book. "Oh dear," Violet said, wondering what in the world tome meant. "This is a very difficult book." Tome, by the way, is another fancy way of saying a book, or a volume holding many letters or scriptures of information. A tome. A tome, a book, a novel, a novella, a grimoire, so on and so forth. "Gosh," Sunny said, wondering what in the world endeavor meant. "If we only had a dictionary," Violet said glumly, "then we might be able to find out what this sentence means." "Yash," Sunny pointed out, which meant something like, "And if only Klaus were hypnotized, then he could tell us what this sentence means." Violet and Sunny sighed and thought of their poor hypnotized brother. Klaus seemed so different from the brother they knew that it was almost as if Count Olaf had already succeeded with his dastardly scheme and destroyed one of the Baudelaire orphans. Klaus usually looked interested in the world around him, and now he had a blank expression on his face. His eyes were usually all squinty from reading, and now they were wide as if he had been watching TV instead. He was usually alert and full of interesting things to say, and now he was forgetful and almost completely silent. "Who knows if Klaus could define these words for us?" Violet asked. "He said it felt like part of his brain had been wiped clean. Maybe he doesn't know all those words when he's hypnotized. I don't think I've ever heard him define anything since the incident with Phil, which he explained the word inordinate. You might as well get some rest, Sunny. I'll wake you up if I read anything useful." Sunny crawled up on the table and laid down next to Advanced Ocular Science, which was almost as big as she was. Violet gazed at her sister for a moment and then turned her attention to the book. Violet liked to read, of course, but at heart she was an inventor, not a researcher. She simply did not have Klaus's amazing reading skills. Violet stared at Dr. Orwell's first sentence again, and she saw a mess of difficult words. She knew that if Klaus were in the library and not hypnotized, he would see a way to help them out of their situation. Violet began to imagine how her brother would go about reading Advanced Ocular Science and tried to copy his methods. First, she turned back the pages of the book, back before even the first page, to the table of contents, which, as I'm sure you know, is a list of the titles and page numbers of each chapter in a book. Violet had paid scarcely any attention to it when she first opened the book, but she realized that Klaus would probably examine the table of contents first, so he could see which chapters of the book might be most helpful. Quickly, she scanned the table of contents. Number 1, Introduction. Number 2, Basic Ophthalmology. Number 3, nearsightedness and farsightedness. 4, blindness. 5, itchy eyelashes. 6, damaged pupils, blinking problems, winking problems, surgical practices, glasses, monocles, and contact lenses, sunglasses, hypnosis, and mind control. And finally, on chapter 13, which eye color is the best one? Immediately, of course, Violet saw that Chapter 12 would be the most helpful and was glad she thought of looking at the table of contents instead of reading 927 pages until she finally found something useful. Grateful that she could skip that daunting first paragraph, the word daunting here means full of incredibly difficult words, she flipped through advanced ocular science until she reached hypnosis and mind control. The phrase stylistic consistency is used to describe books that are similar from start to finish. For instance, the book you are reading right now has stylistic consistency because it began in a miserable way and will continue that way until the last page. I'm sorry to say that Violet realized as she began Chapter 12 that Dr. Orwell's book had stylistically consistency as well. The first sentence of Hypnosis and Mind Control was, "Hypnosis is an effective yet precarious methodology and should not be essayed by neophytes." Neophytes is a fancy way of saying amateurs or somebody who's a rookie. And it was every bit as difficult as boring as the first sentence of the whole book. Violet reread the sentence and then reread it again, and her heart began to sink. How in the world did Klaus do it? When the three children lived in the Baudelaire home, there was a huge dictionary in their parents' library, and Klaus would often use it to help him with difficult books. But how did Klaus read difficult books when there was no dictionary to be found? It was a puzzle, and Violet knew it was a puzzle she had to solve quickly. She turned her attention back to the book and reread the sentence one more time, but this time she simply skipped the words she did not know, as often happens when one reads in this way. Violet's brain made a little humming noise as she encountered each word or each part of a word she did not know. So inside her head, the opening sentence of Chapter 12 read as follows: "Hypnosis is a yet method and should not be by And although she could not tell exactly what it meant, she could guess. It could mean, she guessed to herself, that hypnosis is a difficult method and should not be read by amateurs. And the interesting thing is that she was not too far off. The night grew later and later, and Violet continued to read the chapter in this way, and she was surprised to learn that she could guess her way through pages and pages of Dr. Orwell's book. This is not the best way to read, of course, because you can make horribly wrong guesses, but it will do in an emergency. For several hours, the Lucky Smells library was completely quiet except for the turning of pages, as Violet read the book searching for anything helpful. Every so often she glanced at her sister, and for the first time in her life, Violet wished that Sunny were older than she was. When you're trying to figure out a difficult problem, yet as the problem of trying to get your brother unhypnotized so as not to be placed in the hands of a greedy man disguised as a receptionist, it is often helpful to discuss the problem with other people in order to come up with a quick and useful solution. Violet remembered that when the Baudelaires were living with Aunt Josephine, it had been extremely helpful to talk to Klaus about a note that turned out to be a secret hidden within itself. But with Sunny, it was different. The youngest Baudelaire was charming and well-toothed and quite intelligent for a baby, but if she was still a baby and Violet hummed through Chapter 12, she worried that she would fail to find a solution with only a baby as a discussion partner. Nevertheless, when she found a sentence that appeared to be useful, she gave Sunny a waking nudge and read the sentence out loud. "Listen to this, Sunny," she said when her sister opened her eyes. "Once the subject has been hypnotized, a simple word will make him or her perform whatever acts any wants hummed." Sunny asked. "Those are the words I don't know," Violet explained. "It's difficult to read this way, but I can guess what Dr. Orwell means. I think she means that once you're hypnotized someone, all you need to do is say a certain word, and they will obey you. Remember what Klaus told us he learned from the Encyclopedia Hypnotica? There was an Egyptian king who did chicken imitations, and the merchant who played the violin, and that writer, and all the hypnotists did was say a certain word. But they were all different words. I wonder which word applies to Klaus." "Hench," Sunny said, which probably meant something like, "Beats me, I'm only a baby." Violet gave her a gentle smile and tried to imagine what Klaus would have said if he had been there, unhypnotized. And in the library with his sisters. "I'll search for more information," she decided. "Brrrr," Sunny said, which meant, "and I'll go back to sleep." Both Baudelaires were true to their word, and for a time the library was silent again. Violet hummed through the book and grew more and more exhausted and worried. There were only a few hours left until the working day began, and she was scared that her efforts would be as ineffectual — the word ineffectual here means unable to get Klaus unhypnotized — and as as if she had low self-esteem. But just as she was about to fall asleep beside her sister, she found a passage in the book that seemed so helpful, so she read it out loud immediately, waking Sunny up in the process. In order to the hypnotic hold on the Sunny said, the same method is used. A word uttered out loud will the immediately. I think Dr. Orwell is talking about getting people unhypnotized, and it has to do with another word being uttered out loud. If we figure out that one out, we can unhypnotize Klaus, and we won't fall into Shirley's clutches. Skill, Sunny said, rubbing her eyes. She probably meant something like, but I wonder what that word could be. I don't know, Violet said, but we better figure it out before it's too late. Sunny said, making a humming noise, because she was thinking rather than because she was reading a word she did not know. Violet said, which meant she was thinking too, but then there was another that made the two Baudelaire sisters look at one another in worry. This was not the of a brain that did not know what a word meant, or the of a person thinking. This was much louder and longer, and it was a that made the Baudelaire sisters stop their thinking and hurry out of the library, clutching Dr. Orwell's book in their trembling hands. It was the of the lumber mill saw. Somebody had turned on the mill's deadliest machine in the early hours of morning. Violet and Sunny hurried across the courtyard, which was quite dark in the first few rays of the sun. Hurriedly, they opened the doors of the mill and looked inside from the outside. Foreman Flacatano was standing near the entrance with his back to the two girls, pointing a finger and giving an order. The rusty saw machine was whirring away, making that dreadful humming sound, and there was a log on the ground, all ready to be pushed into the saw. The log seemed to be covered in layers and layers of string. The string that had been used inside the string machine before Klaus had smashed it. The two sisters took a better look, stepping farther into the mill, and saw that the string was wrapped around something else, tying a large bundle to the log. And when they looked a bit better, peeking from behind Foreman Flacatano, they saw the bundle was Charles. He was tied to the log with so much string that it looked a bit like a cocoon, except that the cocoon had never looked this frightened. Layers of string were covering his mouth, so he could not make a sound, but his eyes were uncovered. He was staring in terror at the saw as it drew closer and closer. "All right, you little twerp," Foreman Flacatano was saying. "You've been fortunate so far, avoiding my boss's clutches, but no more. One more accident and you'll be ours, and this will be the worst accident the lumber mill has ever seen. Just imagine Sir's displeasure when he learns that his partner had been sliced into human boards. Now you, lucky man, go and push the log into the saw." Violet and Sunny took a few more steps forward, near enough that they could reach out and touch Foreman Flacatano. Not that they wanted to do such a distancing thing, of course. And saw their brother. Klaus was standing at the controls of the sawing machine in his bare feet, staring at the foreman with his wide, blank eyes. "Yes, sir," he said, and Charlie's eyes grew wide with panic. And that is where we will end for today. We got 2 more chapters left, y'all. We'll be on to book 5, and once we get to book 7, book 6 will pretty much be halfway through the series. So we're making pretty good time, because there's 13 books in the series of unfortunate events, but we're doing pretty good. I can see us being completely done with this series if we keep up at this pace. I would say by the end of November, early December, we should be completely done, and then we'll start a new series of books for the Instagram equivalent of Storytime. So, without further ado, I bid you all a wonderful day. Again, thank you for everybody that's been keeping up and making sure that I'm taken care of. I really, really, really appreciate you all. So, I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye.